But to circle back on just the intersection of creativity and quote unquote success, I would love for you to share some of the, expansive, awe-inspiring stories that you maybe have seen throughout your coaching or throughout your workshops. I think in particularly for maybe in the corporate setting, because I think a lot of people don't realize like how beneficial it can be and how can it integrate sustainably into your professional life.
So I love working with all different kinds of groups, but some of my favorite experiences are walking into rooms full of people with their arms crossed because they didn't choose the
Mhm.
experience, it got chosen for them. And that for me is like, oh yeah, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on.
Mhm.
And there was one particular experience where I was doing a workshop for 50 data analysts,
Ooh.
and most of them were men, and many of whom English was not their first language. And it was really incredible how this work is so simple and yet profound. It's my job to find out where the cultural levers are, how can I, like, meeting people where they are. But then once they do it, the seed cracks open, to quote Hafez. So I'm sitting here witnessing this group empathy that's taking place and these breakthroughs that are happening. And I'm not naming them as such. Men are putting up their hands, sharing about their experience, and they are saying, I just had a breakthrough.
Mm.
So this idea that the work is so transformative that even in an environment that's as potentially hostile as that, it still works. And again, it's not, this isn't false modesty. It's really, I'm a skilled, after 11 years of doing this, I'm a skilled practitioner. I'm a skilled facilitator. But it really isn't about that. They're, I am helping them find the permission to give themselves the space to express themselves, and giving them different ways of utilizing their journal, walking them through that, and then off they go. And even in a corporate environment, it's remarkable to witness. Now, people say to me, I'm not a creative person. Every single person on this planet is a creative being. And I'm not saying everybody's an artist, right? Like, not everybody's Michelangelo. That's a different animal in my estimation. However, we are all creative people, and being able to connect with that innate creativity brings so much into your life and into your career. So being a more creative person is going to make you a more innovative problem solver. It's going to make you a better manager, a better colleague, a more empathetic colleague. And it's going to provide you with the ability to lift up and have a look around, as I say, above the tree line. Because when we're so focused on the day-to-day and those tasks, those to-do lists that never end, we don't have the chance to gain additional perspective. And that's waiting for you on the page through structured journaling, which is one of the things that I help people with.
So that's more, talk to me a little bit more about ways to get unstuck then. Like, structured journaling is you providing prompts, or you providing a series of prompts.
Yes.
What are other ways to, for beginners out there to help get unstuck? Because sometimes showing up, I'm not intimidated by the page. I won't say I was, I feel like when I was healing through trauma and through cancer, I was really scared to write and show up to the page. But yeah,
Yes.
how does one even like begin to massage, their journaling skills? Like, how can we, or not even journaling, how can we get unstuck?
Creativity writ large. Yeah. So I touched on it a little bit earlier, this idea of the critical voice. And Adam Phillips, who's a neuropsychologist out of the UK, talks a little bit about critical voice. And he says that if you met this person, if the critical voice were embodied and you met this person, you would think like, what happened to them? And you'd be right, because a critical voice is made out of trauma, and it can be capital T trauma and lower key trauma. But the idea is if we met them at a cocktail party, we'd be like, okay, and try to get away from them as fast as possible, right? Because they're not a very pleasant person to interact with.
Right.
And once you start to understand that, you can have more sympathy for that critical voice, because all they're looking to do is to protect you from what they consider to be errors in judgment. They're trying to keep you safe. That critical voice is trying to keep you safe. However, it's made up of trauma. So it isn't necessarily playing by accurate rules. And when you understand that every single person has one, it's easier to understand that it's just part and parcel of being a human. And if you can have the metacognition to recognize it and then other it. So I say that my critical voice, just like my anxiety, like I'm not trying to banish either, it would be fruitless. But I don't want them to be the MC. I give them a seat at the table. I thank them. Because sometimes like they give me good information, and sometimes they're just keeping me from creativity and play. So if you can give yourself that awareness and whatever's coming up for you, oh, I can't do this. I'm no good at this. I've never done this. Other people are better at it. People are going to laugh at me. Someone's going to think I'm silly. Whatever those things are. And you can understand that all of that is part of a critical voice that is trying to protect you, but all it's doing is keeping you from joy. So you can say, thanks, talk to you later, and then give yourself the permission to show up and see what's there.
I always check in and say, is this the truth or is this a story that I'm telling myself? And I think that's a Brene Brown actually tool that I've been using for many, many years. But I love the visual of the dinner party, because it's not like those people are going to walk out the door forever. It's like, no, you have to find like honor and compassion for these stories, these traumas. You know, they're always going to be within you. They're a part of you, and not in like a toxic way. It's like, it's how can you find, you know, sometimes I think people get triggered. It's like, how can you find gratitude for your cancer journey and everything? And I'm like, you know, sometimes, you know, I that's hard for me to really wrestle with, but like I can find meaning. I can find meaning in it. I can find compassion for that girl. Gratitude, I don't know, gratitude for the enlightenment afterwards, maybe, or like the lessons learned afterwards.